Broadcast. Okay, I am doing a painting of Salisbury Cathedral. And if you want to see my 7 little black and white thumbnails and 1 color sketch, first of all, here's the photograph I'm working from. Let me zoom in here. There's the photograph. Again, got this on Google, looked up copyright granted permission, that filter in Google, so that I theoretically, I believe I have permission to use this, although I'm going to modify it so much no photographer will ever recognize his work of this piece. And here's the final little color sketch that I did of the painting. And I'm going to actually go more, I'm going to be using the photograph for details of the building, but for feeling, atmosphere of the painting, it's the sketch here that I'm going to be looking at going to be leaning on quite heavily. I've truncated the building. I find I do that often to my buildings. I squeeze them and make them appear taller. I think that's sort of psychological. I've sometimes wondered if it's a bad drawing, but I don't think so. I think it makes buildings look a little bit more dramatic. Not that any building needs to look any more dramatic than Salisbury Cathedral. Google it. And I've been there several years ago. My wife and I were there. Spectacular. I mean, just utterly jaw-dropping. Okay, let's get started. Now, obviously it's a vertical canvas and a vertical subject matter. And the steeple, the spire, I think it's not called a steeple, it's called a spire, of course, is the main thing. I'm putting focal point here in the middle of the painting, not at the bottom, not at the top, but sort of where the spire meets the roof line of the rest of the cathedral is what I'm thinking of as focal point. Now, I know that I'm going to start out this painting with what I call a counterpoint or counterfoil mark, and I'm standing here trying to decide what color is going to be. Looking at my sketch, not green, not blue, not brown, red, yellow, orange, not yellow, not orange, red, purple. Either red or purple. Reddish purple it is. Again, I'm going with pretty much a color that is not consonant with the image, but contrasting to it. Okay, now that's it. A couple things about this mark that I just made. Number one, I want it to be a good, I want it to be a good abstract painting. Just a mark that I just made. I would like it to be good enough that I could sell it as a completed, finished abstract painting. Forgive me here while I stabilize my picture holder a little bit. I've got a T-square back here that I'm using to hold up my references here, and I didn't realize they were unstable until I started to paint. So you can ask me, why do I do this? Boy, that's hard to say. It's because it works. For me, it gets me off on the right foot. It keeps me from getting off on the wrong foot. The wrong foot for me is draw, eat, draw, eat, draw, e. Draw, draw, draw. Tongue painting, tongue drawing. It keeps me from starting. It's like I'm playing myself a little psychological trick. I'm saying to myself, okay, Nelson, remember, this is a painting, not a picture. Okay. I'm passionate about that, as you can tell. He's a little too passionate, if you ask me. Okay, that's enough out of you guys. So I'm thinking the steeple's going to be right about here somewhere. Steeple, I keep calling it that, don't I? The spire. And I had a friend, while I was doing my sketches yesterday, actually I had a friend who had lived in Salisbury, or near Salisbury, for several years, now lives in Bristol. Dane, was it? Really fun to have him here. He also informed me that it rarely snows in Salisbury. Last snowfall there was maybe 10 years ago, he said. So that was kind of fun to hear all these little details. Okay, so I'm thinking, as you can imagine, I'm thinking way more right now, way more about composition than I am realism. Um, I don't, I don't want to get. It's more important that this image hang together on this canvas than it is that the image be honest, if you will, to Salisbury Cathedral. And my great apologies to the way I'm going to, if you will, desecrate Salisbury Cathedral, because I know I'm not going to capture it terribly accurately, because that would not serve my purposes. I'd much rather catch my little capture the sketch accurately. By the way, I spent quite a bit of time yesterday, several hours, doing those sketches and trying to work out exactly, and I don't mean exactly, but trying to work out essentially what I want this painting to look like. I did, after I was all finished, doing all of this work yesterday, I Googled Salisbury Cathedral at night and discovered I was way off the mark because, oh yeah, as you can imagine, that's right, they light the thing up like a Christmas tree every night. So, I mean, the whole thing is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous at night as it is in the daytime. So if you want to see it, just look up, Salisbury Cathedral at night. Beautiful, 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 but not what I'm trying to reflect here. So this is Salisbury Cathedral twilight for sure. Not at night and not realistic. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, well, we're not going to do 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Close enough? And then down here on the bottom floor, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 tall windows on the bottom floor down here. And a roof right about here. Spectacular building. I mean, what can you say? And built 1250 to 13 something. I looked it up. I was doing some research on the building after I did all the drawing last night, and it was as I expected. It was started in the 1200s. They just had their 750th celebration of the dedication of the cathedral, I think in 2008. So 2008 minus 750, that's when the building was, do the math, that's when the cathedral was finished. So 404 feet tall. I remember that from being there. The spire, which is just going off the top of the painting. By the way, that is intentional. That's not an accident. If you want, here's a quick rule of thumb. If you want an object in your painting to appear tall, you don't fit the whole object in your painting. You make it go off the top of the canvas and it appears taller. And I certainly want this. Cathedral, the spire, to appear tall. So I make it go all the way off the top of the building. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Doing quite a bit of drawing here. It's not terribly important that my drawing be accurate, but it is quite important that my perspective be accurate. So I can't have big mistakes in perspective. Now, one other little detail, and you can decide to do what you want with this. If you really wanted this building to appear tall, you would actually include, it would be a 3-point perspective, left, right, and up here. And all of these these points should be converging slightly like this. For some reason, I don't usually like that. Maybe I'm weak in that regard. Maybe I should be doing that. I don't know. I rarely do. I do a lot of tall buildings too in my painting. I do a lot of cityscapes, as you may know. So a lot of tall buildings, and I rarely do that third perspective thing. And as I said, maybe I should be doing it, and I'm just wimping out, huh? Very possible. Very possible that I am wimping out, as they say. I think it looks a little cartoony often, or maybe I just need to grow into it. I'm thinking if ever there was a time I should do it, it's right here on this particular building, but I'm still not inclined to, so we'll see. Could I have these tilt in just slightly? That's where it would be. It would be here and here. Well, this one actually is leaning in slightly. That's good. Good. See, I did it on purpose. You believe that, don't you? Okay, now, one of the things I would like to do on this painting that I failed to do yesterday on the Statue of Liberty. But by the way, I finished the Statue of Liberty and I've already posted it on Facebook on YouTube and on Facebook. And it's available if you're interested. Make an offer. See what it looks like. Especially those of you who watched me paint it. But I'm going to pause right there. I'll be back continuing this broadcast in just a few minutes. Thanks for watching. I'm going to hit this with a hairdryer and be back in a minute. Thanks so much for watching. Okay, welcome back, part 2. Let me zoom in here real quick, and I want to show you why I love my approach to painting. I hope you'll be able to see this pretty well. Do you see this texture here? You can't paint that kind of texture. You can't buy that kind of texture. You can't make that up. You can't force that. All you can do is create an environment where that kind of thing happens, but you can't make it happen. You have to let it happen. It would take 6 years with a one-haired brush to paint a texture anywhere close to that, and even that then you would fail. So this is what I like about my style of painting. Now, what I don't like, not about my technique, but about how I screw up my technique, is how I so often lose this beauty and energy later. So here we go. I am going to make a concerted effort to not cover up, not lose that, what I'm calling energy here, okay? So, and it's going to be by doing less of every layer than I think I ought to do. There. That's less than I think I ought to do of that yellow layer. Now, I don't have to wait for that to dry. Let me go right straight ahead to my next phase, which is going to be white accents, white highlights. If I were breaking this painting down into steps, I would have step 1 was the big orange, the big red swoosh. Step 2 was drawing with brushes. Step 3 was that yellow, and step 4 now is white, or phase number 4 is this painting some white details, or perhaps I should call it light details. And of course the yellow isn't dry yet, so my white paint is picking up the yellow paint, but that's okay with me. It's a pleasant effect, I think. Now, again, I really want to be careful that I don't do too much of this phase because this is opaque paint, so it's one of the phases that one of the steps that really, really does cover up the beautiful energy that I was talking about a minute ago that I so much don't want to lose, don't want to cover up. So I'm going to try to be careful not to do too much of it. Like right in here. Right? This would be the place to do too much, right there. I'm going to try to keep it very abstract. By the way, having done more research since I did my sketch, I have reason to question whether Salisbury Cathedral ever looks the way I'm painting it here, because it looks to me like every night there's huge amounts of light hitting the outside of the building, so much so that the light coming through the stained glass on the inside is quite overwhelmed as far as I can tell. So I'm not sure that this feeling that I'm giving it, I want to be, this is sort of a moody kind of feel, and I'm not sure it ever happens on Salisbury Cathedral, but that ain't going to stop me. I'm gonna paint this moody painting because that's what I'm in the mood to do. I'm going to show them how they ought to light Salisbury Cathedral. Maybe they will see my painting and change their mind. Yes, I jest. Yes, all you English people, leave me alone. I'm just kidding. One time, by the way, years ago, I did do a painting of a house in downtown Raleigh. It was a very picturesque setting and a fairly new house. So, you know, usually I paint old houses, but this is a new house in a beautiful setting with a river and a mill stream and a little waterfall in front of it. But the side of the house that was visible from where I was standing was very, very plain and did not make a good painting. So I added awnings to several of the windows on that side of the house, and for some reason, I don't remember the details now, but for some reason, I think I showed somehow the owner saw it. Anyway, next time I went back to the building, to that house, they had added awnings to their house. Now, I wasn't positive that it was because of me, but, you know, I can flatter myself, I suppose. Ooh, I'm liking this. I am liking the way this is feeling. Again, I feel like it's really got a good feel. I could, you know, if it was somebody else's painting, we could stop right there and call it finished and say, well, that's his style, his or her style. Unfortunately, it's not my style. And maybe I'll grow into this someday. Maybe someday this will be my style. But right now it's not. So I don't feel like I have the freedom, even though, to a large extent, one could stop here and call it a finished painting. Nope. Okay, I was going to say big decision to make right here. Am I going to do the trees? There are actually 3 trees, boom, 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 bare trees in front of this cathedral. And I have to decide whether I want to include those or not. And I just made that decision. The answer is no. I'm going to follow my sketch in that regard. And in my sketch, the trees are not there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, okay. There's actually 4 windows across here. I'm not going to try to capture that many, but yeah. And I have the light, hard edge right here, hard edge right there, because that's the focal point of the painting. in my opinion, at least at this point, is actually the intersection where this meets this, that intersection right there. So there's a hard edge right there that I expect will show throughout the duration of the painting. At least that's what I'm thinking right now. And I hope what you're seeing is better than what I'm seeing on my monitor. It's very washed out. What happens if we do this? Well, let me get the shadow out of the way. Almost. Here, let me blow it up for a second. That's maybe a little bit better, more realistic vision of it than that, but I can't paint with that dull light, so I'm turning the light back on. Sorry about that. You're getting a lot of glare. That's sort of the part of the business of all right. I'm getting a by the way, here's a good trick. It's a cheap brush, and it's got some dry paint right on the edge here. So I just use my scissors and cut that paint out. There we go. You don't do that to an expensive brush, but it's okay to do it to this one. Don't like that swoosh quite so much. I want just a little more energy, a little more chaos up here. Oh, and maybe down here as well. But I have to be really careful down here, don't I? Because I don't want to cover up or obliterate all this beautiful stuff down here that I was bragging on earlier. That's precisely what I want to try to keep in my painting. Okay, I'm going to stop there and stop you guys right there. And I'm going to let that dry. I'll be back in just a few minutes for the next step. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, welcome back. I actually surprised myself here by switching over to oils. So I'm into oils already. I just did, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 quick layers of acrylics. And I expressed, if you were watching in the last episode, I'm very intentional about today. I feel I have this problem that I do many times, which is I lay down this beautiful random color early on and texture early on in the painting process, and then as the painting proceeds, I cover up way too much of it. So, hey, if that's what I'm trying to do, then maybe it makes sense to truncate my acrylic stage. Boy, I got some yellow ochre on those brushes and didn't mean to. Okay, now I do know that up here I want some warm. I mean, ignore my words, listen to my painting. I want some cool. I want some blue up here in the sky. Excuse me while I step in front of you and take a moment to paint the edges of the canvas. I really almost always do gallery wrap because I hate buying frames for my paintings. Okay, so that was ultramarine blue with just a little bit of yellow ochre in it accidentally, but the yellow ochre worked well, helped it from being too. Now that's way too light, I feel like. Again, I'm looking at my sketch over here. Can you see my sketch? Barely. Here, let me zoom in for you. There's the sketch that I did yesterday. And there's the photograph that I'm looking at for details. And I think here's what I'm going to do on this one today. I think I'm going to cover the entire canvas with blue-ish stuff, a little bit of violet down here. And then I'm going to lift off with a rag. So again, if you're with me on this quest today, I don't want to cover up all that beautiful initial texture that I threw down. I just have covered it up just now, at least to a large degree. So I am definitely going to use a rag to lift out. But in this case, for this painting, I just felt like it would be easier to put it on and lift it off rather than try to paint around the areas that I want to remain. Now let's do a little phthalo blue. Woo! Oh my goodness. Anybody ever heard the expression, a little phthalo goes a long way? I wrote that expression. Look what I just did. I just drowned this thing in phthalo blue accidentally. But let's do it anyway. Let's see what it looks like. And again, I plan to do a lot of rag painting. Plan to do a lot of ragging on this glaze here. Now, if by any chance, anytime you're doing a glaze and you, like I just did, get too much phthalo, you can anti-phthalo it. Are you with me? By doing purple, by doing violet. Because they're at the opposite ends of blue, cool blue and warm blue. Phthalo is a warm blue, and violet is a cold blue. So they cancel each other out. So the violet tames down the phthalo a little bit, which I definitely want to do up here. Oh, I remember what brand I'm using of violet right here. I will not name it for you, but I just realized, oh yeah, this might not be the most powerful. Whoa. Well, that didn't work very well, did it? I've got a huge mess now because my painting just fell on my palette. So I've painted the bottom of my canvas all kinds of colors, yellow, black. Let me wipe that off. Sorry. Oh my goodness. And put it back. And tighten this up a little bit tighter. That is not supposed to happen. New easel here, by the way. So don't know, still we are getting used to each other. Shall I put it that way? Okay. Let's do one of my favorite colors in glazing almost always is oxide red, which is a brown. Don't be confused by the name. Oxide red is a brown color, very close to burnt sienna. Oxide red, as oxide as in rust, right? So my guess is it's some kind of iron oxide, but I'm not sure. Anyway, felt like I needed to dirty up that color up here at the top. This glazing, this step is taking quite a bit longer than my normal, but that's all right. Better to get it right. Better to get it right than have to come back and do it again. That's for sure. Now, what you see me doing right here is something I do fairly often in my glazing. I'll do one color glaze, covering essentially much or the whole canvas, and then come back and do a second color right on top of it, mixing the colors right there on the canvas. So that worked very well for me right there. I did oxide red, again, which is a brown, on top of the ultramarine blue that was down there. That is looking pretty good. Do more oxide red up here. And some ultramarine. Yeah, sorry, usually this glazing step takes me just 2 minutes at the most. And here I am going on 5 or 6 minutes at least. Yeah, maybe 7. But I'm liking finally, and I know you can't necessarily tell exactly what colors it is from my camera to your monitor, but it's a muddy brown. Okay, I'm going to stop there. And now, will this rag do? Barely. It's a little bit too wet with water, that is. But I'm not sure I've got one. Yeah, this one will do. Hang on just a second. Let me cut this rag in half. Okay. Now, again, looking at my reference, my sketch mostly, let's do some careful painting with rags. Do you see it already beginning to emerge, have the look and the feel that I want? Yeah? Now, some smart aleck might say, well, if you're going to wipe it all off, why on earth did you put it on in the first place? And here at this point, I would nod, for one thing, to anybody that's done any furniture refinishing, knows that putting it on and taking it off is not the same as not putting it on. It's a hand-rubbed finish, very much, and very different from not putting it on, because it leaves just slight residual, depending on, again, on how hard you rub, determines how much you take off and how much gets left on. So it's a lot of, you get to do a lot of control freaky kind of stuff without being too much of a control freak. I like it a lot. I like being able to do that. Okay, I'm going to make a modification right here already to my glazing, and that is that I lifted out some stuff that I want to put back right here. Ooh, that's a nice color. A little bit of an accident. Happy accident. Okay, now, where are we? I'm not totally happy with that rag. Let's see what happens if I just use a tissue. Excuse me, my picture holder has gotten too much jarring around and has fallen down on me. Sorry about that. I don't usually use a tissue. I'm afraid it's going to leave, I'm always afraid it'll leave lint. But I'm not very happy with that blue rag I was using, so I'm taking the chance here with a Kleenex. Having some issues with my mechanics here, aren't I? You still with me? Let me lower you down a little bit. Now, well, the peak of this point right here is in the light. And I want here, I want to remove a lot of this more than makes sense as far as realism goes. Here I'm not so intent on realism as I want to uncover that initial gorgeous splash of energy that I pointed out at the very beginning of this painting. I'm doing what I usually do here, erasing, lifting out, I'd say erasing, you know what I mean, lifting out by degrees, not doing it all at once. Now, let's get some of these little window light bits here. Hey, if nothing else, I hope I'm turning you on to this notion of painting with a rag, lifting out glazes. When I paint in oils only, that is to say, oils without the acrylics underneath. I typically do a lot of this. I start out with very thin glazes of oil and then do quite a bit of lifting, or negative painting, reverse painting, lifting out with a rag. I'm using this brush just to soften some streaks. If I don't want streaks from my rag to show up, and using a brush to smooth out. Happy little accidents. The things that surprise us are often the very best parts of our painting. Ooh. Yeah. Okay, for me right now, some happy surprises are this little blush of pink right in here. I didn't really do that on purpose, but when I lifted off the glaze there, this pink was staring at me. Gorgeous. And this little bit of orange up here, gorgeous. Again, you can't make up this kind of stuff. All you can do is create an environment where this kind of stuff can happen. You don't force it, you have to allow it to happen. Bob Ross's best line is happy little accidents. And when I discovered that the best painting actually happens, this years ago, when I discovered that the best painting actually happens when you're trying hard to do something else, that is, happy little accidents. When I discovered that, I said, well then, why don't I then just paint accidents? It's, if you'll suffer me a silly analogy, you know, if the black box always survives the plane crash, then why doesn't everybody ride in the black box? Of course, I'm being silly, but the point is, again, if the best paintings are the happy accidents, then why don't you paint all accidents? And that, as a matter of fact, is exactly a very good description of my approach to painting. You can't make this stuff happen, but you can paint in such a way that it does happen, so to speak, on its own. Okay, now here's where, again, here's my sketch way down here. Here's where the painting that I'm doing, the technique of my painting, far surpasses this sketch. This sketch is showing me some major values and color, what I'm after. But because of the way that I paint, my technique, I'm getting colors in here that my sketch can't even touch, can't even approach. Okay, I'm just about done now, wiping stuff off. Let's do this next. I'm going to take a little break again, and when I come back, I believe I'll be coming back with pencils. Again, I get a kick out of it when people say, "Oh, did you do a sketch first?" And if you watch me paint, you know why that's funny. Because no, I do. I mean the absolute antithesis of a sketch, right? I mean the opposite. A big hot pink X is how this painting started. Hardly, not quite a sketch, but I do like the lines. I do like sketchy lines in my painting. So that's why I come back and add them later. Okay, this has gone on long enough. Thanks for watching. I'll be back in just a little while. If you enjoy this, please subscribe and please let your artist friends know what I'm doing, would you? Thanks so much. Be back in a bit. Now, I really want to be able to see some details on this when I do some drawing on this cathedral. So let me change my setup just a little bit. Now's the time. I don't care that much about what's happening with my sketch. At this point, it's the details of the building itself that I want to get more or less correct. Correct-ish. I don't, of course, don't have to get every detail by any means, but I want to be faithful to the feeling. Sorry. Oh, I got a rug bunching up underneath me. No wonder my chair. And I've also switched to a sitting down position. No point in making myself miserable. While I try to draw this. And if you ever wondered, yes, you can actually draw faster with 2 pencils than you can with 1. For one thing, you can draw 2 lines at a time. It's pretty simple, really. Okay, now, this will be review for those of you who follow me often, but just in case there's some new people watching me. The essence of good drawing, just as the essence of good painting, the essence of good drawing, that is the sine qua non, without which nothing. If you don't got this, you don't got nothing, honey. The essence of good drawing is making interesting marks. The interestingness, if I can make up words, the interestingness of the marks is quite a bit more important than the literal accuracy, similitude of the marks. Boy, that messes with some of you, doesn't it? And by the way, messy or interesting marks is not an excuse for inaccurate marks. Boy, what are you talking about, Mr. Nelson? So your marks need to give the impression of accuracy without literally being stultified, stiff, slavish, stuck, and a whole bunch of other words that start with the letter S. Stiff. No, those are all bad words. Stuck. Stultified, that's my favorite one. And every once in a while, like that line right there, my hand has permission to just have a little seizure without my permission. If I've been too fastidious, another one of my favorite words, if I've been too fussy for too long, my hand says, "Oh yeah, take that, smarty pants," and it makes some wild, crazy mark, like any one of those. Now you might say, well, what are those marks supposed to indicate? That's a bird falling from the sky. No, that's a joke. That's a telephone, a power line. No, no, that is nothing. It's just a line of energy, a hand-drawn line in the sky. And it's not supposed to represent any realistic thing at all. But it is somewhat important because it represents energy, human energy. Interesting mark. Now, I've done quite a bit of detail on this. I'm going to stand up now because I have to reach this part of the spire. Yeah, so interestingness is not an excuse for bad drawing. Boy, one of these days I'm going to do a full clinic online about interesting marks and straight lines. Okay, let me give you part of the straight line scoop right now. It's real simple. Human beings cannot draw straight lines without a ruler or a computer. You can't draw straight lines. There will be a day when you draw a straight line. We typically call it flat line. There will be a day when you flat line. That will be the same day that your heart stops beating and you go to some other realm. Be that the grave or glory. Nobody knows for sure, do they? The day that you flatline, from then for all the rest of eternity, my friend, you will draw nothing but straight lines. I'm being a little bit silly, aren't I? Well, while you're alive, you literally cannot, you lack the capacity to draw straight lines. Why? Because your heart is beating. And if your heart is beating, you cannot draw straight lines. So, when you try to draw a straight line, when you try, which you can't do because your heart is beating, but when you try, you draw ugly, or as I like to say, hoogly. That means really ugly. When you try to draw a straight line and fail, the lines that you draw are ugly lines. Therefore, don't try to draw straight lines. Draw crooked ones. Intentionally, which is what you see me doing all over the place here. Drawing intentionally crooked lines. Now, when I finish, by the way, this stage of the drawing process, my painting will be way too liney. It'll have way too many lines in it. That's by design. It will have too many lines in it. But I have at least 2, if not 3 more steps to go in the painting process. And those 2 steps will both diminish and in some cases obliterate some of these lines. So, but I don't know which lines need obliterating. I won't know until the time comes when I'm obliterating. Does that make sense? So it's like, well, could you put fewer lines now? Yes, I could. I could absolutely. And once you could say that I'm already doing that. I'm doing fewer lines already on purpose. Because who knows? You don't know that I want to do twice as many lines as I'm actually doing. That is not true, by the way. I don't want to do twice as many. I'm doing quite a few lines here. But many of these will be diminished because I don't, by the way, why am I doing lines? So, partly for similitude, that is realism, partly to make this look like Salisbury Cathedral, partly. But that's the smaller part of the reason. The larger part of the reason why I'm doing lines is because I like the combination of, what do I call it, scratchy lines versus smooshy paints. right? The lines, the pencil lines are considerably scratchier than the paint lines, and I like the combination. So that's the big reason why I'm doing pencil. And unlike a traditional oil painter who does his lines at the beginning, or her lines at the beginning, and then covers them all up, I'm doing my lines quite late in the process, and most certainly not covering them up, only covering up some of them. Okay, I'm talking an awful lot, I'm drawing an awful lot, but I sense that you're just about worn out with my talking, so let me take a break right here. And, oh, I'm sorry, I went off screen a little bit there, didn't I? That's what it's going to look like. I'll do a little bit more drawing, not too much, especially down here, not too much. And then we'll come back into the next phase. Thanks so much for watching. Tell your friends to watch with you. Thank you. Hello, friends. Welcome back. So I am down to the 7th or 8th layer of this painting, which is the fuzz layer. Paint a happy cloud. I might do that. Now, I cheated on you because I actually did a whole bunch of the fuzz layer in the sky without your company. Let me turn this light off again and see if you can get a better picture. Yeah, there you go. That's a little bit better impression of what the sky actually looks like. And get this, you know what color I used to make that sky up there? This will rattle you artsy-fartsy people. Black and white. Ivory black and titanium white. Makes gray. That's like breaking one of the cardinal rules. Never use black. That's one of those cardinal rules that is something over cardinalized or something. Okay, this is the fuzz layer, and that means translucent, soft edged, and glow, and local color. Okay, this is a new development in my painting in the last 6 months, I think, 7 months maybe. So right now I've got a little bit of rose, permanent rose, on my brushes and titanium white, because I want to warm this sky up just a little bit. And that's too little. I can't even see it. I know you can't see it. If I can't see it, you can't see it. Hey, Izzy, you want to tell me anytime somebody makes a comment and it shows up right up here? Yeah, pull up a chair if you want. And if somebody makes a comment, yell, say, comment. You can move that heater if you want. It's not hot anymore.
Every time I'm up here, is that my job?
Is that your job? Yep, sometimes it is your job. Okay, so the rule with this fuzz layer, it's a new layer, as I said, that I started about 6 months ago. I stumbled on it like every good thing. Almost every good thing in my art career, in my painting technique, is something I stumbled on by accident. And this is definitely one of those. I won't tell you how I stumbled. Just trust me, it was like, oh, that worked kind of well. And again, it's a very, very soft process. I've actually got a soft brush in this hand instead of a bristle brush, which helps me even more keep it soft. Okay, that might be good enough. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is glow in windows, glow around windows. I'm picking up, with these dirty brushes, I'm picking up some, would you rather sit over there? Here, turn this chair around. There you go. Turns out, by the way, I had my YouTube chat turned off accidentally. I don't know how in the world that happened, because I kept wondering all afternoon why nobody was leaving any comments. Then just a minute ago, I said, whoa, my YouTube chat's been turned off all this time. Oh, my goodness. Well, I enjoyed the solitude. I'm glad you guys were watching, but nobody could say anything, and I feel real bad about that. My grandson is here now to help me catch any comments that you happen to make.
Unless if your arm is in the way.
Yeah, except my arm's in the way. I know, that is a problem.
Hopefully you'll see it before your arm is in the way.
Yeah. Once again, let me show you the sketch that I did yesterday that I'm using quite a bit to get the coloration and so forth that I want on this painting. I've got a very, very warm yellow on my brushes at the moment. And of course, we can always paint with a rag. Always paint with a rag. That's not called erasing, ladies and gentlemen. It's called painting with a rag. Now, down here, I really definitely want to do some glow on these windows. Soft edges, soft edges, soft edges. That's what makes something look like it's glowing, is the softness of the edges. If you want something to look like it's very bright, you don't make it razor sharp edge, you make it soft edge. Yeah, warm this up a little bit. Now, when I did this just a minute ago, my fuzzing was actually picking up some of the black pencil, making this dirty. So I'm just going to lighten it now with a rag to make that glow a little bit cleaner and brighter. Again, so I'm not erasing, right? You don't erase, you paint with a rag. More of the same. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is mix up a lighter, brighter, whiter version of what I just did. And I'm going to, I can't get my chair to turn around. And I'm going to come back and do more glow, more pale yellow glowing on these windows, because I really want this to glow. The next layer, I have just one layer left, unless sometimes I interpose a layer of pencil before I go to the last layer. So it's either 1 or 2 layers left. I don't know. Take a minute to clean up my palette. There we go. Okay. Back to work. White and a tiny bit of Hansa or lemon yellow or cad yellow light, I don't know which, and a tiny bit of yellow ochre. That's my favorite combination for a pale, warm white, is white and yellow ochre, and sometimes a little bit of yellow. Okay, let's do some glowy stuff now. There's a comment. Hello, Ilko. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Brunsma. Where are you from, Mr. Brunsma? Brunsma. I mean, it's Dutch, right? Dutch name? Are you American Dutch or Dutch Dutch? Thank you for commenting. And no, you don't need to answer any of my questions. If you don't want to, any personal questions, you can completely ignore them if you so desire. I just enjoy seeing people's names and where they are from. Yeah.
On your eighth level,
Yep. Very good.
Are you going to make the maybe this is what you're doing right now, but make the building itself, not the windows, darker, and then make the windows more lighter?
Yep. No, I'm not going to make the building any more darker than it already is. Probably. Maybe a tiny bit, but not much. My painting is as dark as it's going to get. I'm just going to make the windows lighter and different parts of the building lighter. Nope, not darker, lighter. Is that funny? This time. Yep, barely any black. That's correct.
That you can see.
That's right. Um, 2 years ago, 2015 or 26, no, 2016. So whatever, a year and a half ago, I managed to get juried into the Oil Painters of America national show. To tell you the truth, I wasn't really all that impressed that I got in until I got there and saw everybody else that got juried in. Then I was I was impressed. It was theoretically, I mean, theoretically, not 200 of the best oil painters in America, and I was honored to be among them, whether I deserved to be or not. I was there, and one of the overall impressions. So there were 212 or so paintings hanging in this gallery. One of the overall impressions that I left that meeting, that gathering with, it was in Dallas, Texas, lasted for 4 days, I think it was that most oil painters, not all by any means, but most good oil painters paint messier than I do. Now, I mean, that's a broad generalization, but most of the, really good oil painters, which is who's there, most of them paint even messier than I. That was quite the revelation. And
more messier, so you get more better.
Yeah, so that's kind of what you're seeing here. I was influenced by that. Well, I'd already been on a trajectory, conscious journey for a number of years up until that point, a conscious effort to be more messy and more accurate in my painting. More messy and more accurate. So it wasn't like my observation in Dallas was a shock out of the blue, out of left field. No, I was already on that journey, and that journey was simply encouraged. That direction was encouraged by seeing the other artists' work. It's like, okay, so I have not pushed the boundary too far, and I liked their paintings. I mean, I liked every single painting I saw. Some more than others, but I liked every single painting that I saw. There wasn't one painting that I didn't think.
Painted more like you.
Oh yeah, there were quite a few people that painted more or less, roughly, like me.
Did you know any of them?
Nope. Nope. Well, yeah, some of them were famous, so I knew the famous ones.
Like who?
Oh, a whole bunch of people. Kevin McPherson,
Look him like.
Chong Wan. Okay, no, later. I've got work to do. Don't talk too much, okay, buddy? Don't talk too much. Thank you very much. Okay, I think I'm ready. Nope, I'm not. I was going to say, I think I'm ready for the final stage, but I'm going to push the light coming out of the windows one more step brighter. The last layer, the difference between this layer and the last one is pretty subtle. This is light highlights, mostly opaque and soft edges. The last layer is exactly the same thing, just with a little more opaque and and harder edges. Now, I certainly don't want to paint all these windows the same way. There's a rule there, by the way. Anytime you have a repeated motif, in this case, the repeated motif is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 windows that in reality are all pretty much exactly the same, right? On the cathedral, they're all exactly the same.
Thought it was a castle.
Therefore, no, it's a cathedral. Therefore, the rule is you want to come up with different techniques for painting the 5 repeated objects. You don't want to do the same thing 5 times. So I've just done the almost the exact same thing twice. It means I better come up with something slightly different. So here's what I'm going to use the broad end side of this brush. And then scratch out some of the details. There we go. See, so that makes a slight variation. This kind of thing is very important when you're doing something like a fence with a whole bunch of pickets in the fence and so forth. Another example, like this roof has lines in it. I want to give the impression that there are lines there, but I dare not do the same, do those lines 25 times in a row. Okay, now here's one thing I can do, and that is I've mixed up a different color. And that stroke was different. All these windows, I made the marks this way. Here on this window, I'm making the mark that way. So does that make sense to you? Now you can do a lot more than just what I'm doing, but I'm being subtle enough. By the way, little tip of the hat. I love saying good things about Thomas Kinkade, partly because I love to see my fellow artists have seizures when they hear me say good things about Thomas Kinkade. Very good. Is the light coming from those windows upright? You've caught me. I haven't decided yet. Is it reflection or is it inside light coming out? I think it's reflection. That is a very good question. And I honestly hadn't decided yet. That's funny you should nail that, because that's exactly was a question that is in my mind, like, is that reflection? So I hope to clarify that, of course, as I proceed. Okay, back to saying good things about Thomas Kinkade. And this used to be a lot more fun to make Thomas Kinkade jokes when he was alive. Really not as much fun now that he's gone. But I get a kick out of the fact that as artists, we're all supposed to hate him. And you know what I mean by that, not hate him personally, but we're supposed to hate his paintings. Now, he chose to do what he chose to do with his paintings, which was do very sentimental stuff. Oh, we missed a comment there, Izzy. But the fact is he was a very good painter, and I say shame on any artist who isn't willing to learn something from anybody. Anyway, this changing the color of the windows, that is classic Thomas Kinkade. By the way, all the glowing stuff, that also is classic Thomas Kinkade. Now, I do not want anybody looking at my paintings and thinking about Thomas Kinkade. I really don't. But it's okay between you and me if I admit to you that I learned some things from looking at his paintings. One of the best artists I've had the privilege of knowing up close is a man named Drew Blair. Now, very, very different world from this right here. Drew Blair, actually, some of you already know who he is. He lived in Raleigh for many years, and I moved to Raleigh 28, 29 years ago, and became friends with him, worked with him some. To say you worked with Drew Blair is almost an exaggeration. He humored me, let me hang out in his studio and watch him paint and work for him a little bit. Again, it was more like him humoring me. Okay, those of you who don't know who he is, just look him up. D-R-U-B-L-A-I-R. He's the best airbrush artist in the world. It's pretty easy to say that. All airbrush artists, everybody who's an airbrush artist right now, if they have common sense, they agree with me. If they're trying to be make some kind of point, they might be arguing with me right now. But most airbrush artists, if you said who's the best, they would say, well, this or that person's pretty good, but this or that. And I say, no, who's the best? They go, okay, Drew Blair. Anyway, I'm having fun now just recalling his memory. but he's alive. He's younger than me. Um, but one of the things I remember him saying to me and to a group, not just to me alone, but he had a master's in fine arts from the University of South Carolina. So, you know, did his homework, literally, got a master's and MFA, and he spent 8 years on the beach in Myrtle Beach, 8 years painting T-shirts, all airbrush T-shirts, all day, every day, for 8 years. And I like using his as an example because he's a great example of how do you get really, 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 really good at something. Man, you work. But the reason I'm mentioning him right now, by the way, this here is definitely light coming from inside. This is not reflection here. And I don't know if these spires even have lights inside them, but this one does. Anyway, the thing that Drew Blair said that has really stuck with me over the years, he said to me very strongly and soberly, he said, I am willing to learn anything from anybody. Again, at the time, he was not just arguably, almost unarguably, in the early mid-90s, the best airbrush artist in the world. And he said, I can learn anything. I will. I am willing to learn anything from anybody. And coming from a guy like that, you know, really left an impression on me. And that's an attitude I like to emulate. And so that's part of the reason why I get a kick out of mentioning Thomas Kincaid's name. I've had a lot of art students turn up their nose. Thomas Kincaid. I have yet to have one art student who's a better painter than he is. I'm not saying there aren't better painters, but none of my students are better painter than him. And who knows, you and I are not his boss. Maybe he did in his lifetime exactly what he was supposed to do, right? So anyway, I will look forward to letting you all see a better version of this painting. I know you're seeing it at a fairly extreme angle. So you're not seeing a lot of what it really looks like. As soon as I finish the painting, or shortly after I finish the painting, of course, I will post a copy of it. Okay, I'm going to change gears here. I'm going to leave the windows for a while. Let's do something different. Let's do some over here, some of the stonework between the windows. It's really a gray building, gray stone, but it's got a very warm light shining on it. So I want this stonework over here where the rising sun, I believe it's rising, where the rising sun is shining on it. I mean, it's either rising or setting. I'm guessing here that it's a rising sun. Oh, I'm trying so hard not to overpaint this. You know, I almost feel like I should probably take a little break right here. Walk away from it for a few minutes and then come back. I'll do that in just a few minutes. Because I'm sitting, as you can see, I'm sitting here with my nose right up in it. And if I'm overpainting, I can't tell because my nose is right up in it. So this has been going on plenty long enough. Little hard edge right there. You think I like that? Again, right there. Yeah. Okay, let me take a break, and I'll be back in just a little while to continue this Impressions of Salisbury Cathedral. Beautiful Places I Have Been is the name of this series of paintings. Thanks for watching. If you like what I'm doing, please subscribe and tell your artist friends to do the same. Welcome back. I've done a little bit of work without you, just a little bit. More highlights on the windows, probably even more of that to go yet. A little bit of smearing the light, and mostly though I'm here in the last few minutes working on the spire here. And here's a case where I'm very glad that I took the time to do yesterday, to do all these sketches and then to do this one color sketch, because it's really helping me a lot deciding exactly which way I want to go in my treatment of this spire. And the answer is I want to go in this direction. Can you see that? So it's very critical that the spire here gets fuzzier as we go upward. And again, forgive me, I know the lighting is not that good for you guys. Getting a lot of glare there. Maybe that's a little better. But anyway, I'm going to proceed to paint, and as I go up, I want to get more and more fuzzy. And again, if I hadn't done that sketch, I'd be timid about exactly how fuzzy to get. But because of the sketch, I know I get pretty fuzzy as I get up here in these clouds. Never paint with your fingers. Of course, say that every time I paint with my fingers. But I have no toxic paints on my palette, so no cadmiums, no cobalt, so I feel fairly free. Well, that messed it up, didn't it? Yeah. By the way, the very technique you see me using here is one that I've discovered I use quite a bit. Put the paint down when you're painting glow. Put the paint down, smear it around, then come back and put it down again. Sometimes smear it 2 or 3 times, and keep coming back with more and more white. So I don't do all my smearing, quote unquote, all at once. I do it in stages often. I don't want it to look as though it's overworked, though. That's huge. I want it to look as though I just slapped it down and there it was. I once described my perfect painting for me would look like an explosion happened in the paint factory. This canvas was in the way, and the canvas paint just splattered all over it. And oh, how about that? It ended up accidentally looking just like Salisbury Cathedral. That to me is a good painting. I haven't achieved that level yet, but I'm still working toward it. I'm not quite in the realm of paint factory explosion. But I'm still on a trajectory for messier and more accurate, both. Many students who, well, I'll be really mean just for a bit, okay, but I'll promise I'll get over it quickly. Many students discover or give up on doing realism, so they settle for impressionistic painting and say, see there, I meant to do that. And they point at their drawing mistakes and errors and so on and so forth and say, yeah, I did that on purpose because it's impressionistic. Well, good impressionism does not mean bad drawing. I know I'm bursting some of your bubbles here, but it's a bubble that needs bursting. Impressionistic painting does not mean bad drawing. So take some time, and you learn how to paint well by drawing well, by sketching well. So really, I've said this many times before, but if you wanted to be, let's say here we are at the first of the year, January of 2018. Let's say January of 2019, exactly 1 year from now, you'd like to be a better painter. Well, I can tell you how to do it. Quit painting. And for the next 12 months, instead of doing even 50 paintings, which will take you a week each, instead of that, do about 1,500 sketches that will take you 10 minutes each. 1 year from now, you'll be a vastly better painter than you are today. So most people need to quit painting and sketch. Now, I haven't figured out how to, and because that's a little bit harsh, because many of you who are hobby painters, you love painting and you don't like drawing. And I am trying to figure out how to help you get over that, so that you're doing something you actually enjoy, but deriving the benefit of sketching. So I'm still working on that. Don't think I've figured it out by any means, anywhere close to completely, but that is one of the things that I feel like we need to figure out for you people who really, it's a hobby. I understand that. So what I just described to you sounds like hobby hell, right? But there must be some way to trick yourself into doing sketches that is still fun to you. Maybe it's doing painting sketches instead of pen. Anyway, I don't know. I'm still working on that, so I'll bear with you if you bear with me for a little bit. Now, let me come back and do some lighter lights right down here. So this, all of that I'm doing here, of course, is just the light hitting the the light side of this building. Let me come over here now and work on this spire. And now I am aware of the fact this is reflection. That is to say, I'm not trying to indicate lights on in this spire. I'm just indicating light hitting, sunlight hitting, sunrise light hitting. I am taking a little bit of liberty. You could say a little bit. Some of you might say you're taking a lot of liberty, buddy. Okay, well, I'm taking a little bit of liberty with the spires on Salisbury Cathedral. This one is actually not this tall compared to this. It shouldn't come any higher than about here. But I'm doing it for dramatic effect. And I am not the least bit worried about over-exaggerating the impressiveness of Salisbury Cathedral. If you watched me yesterday, you heard me talk about one of the true, utter jaw-dropping moments of my life. Several years ago when my wife and I walked through the stone wall, having walked around Salisbury for, the village, the delightful village for quite some time, making our way toward the cathedral. So we had seen hundreds of postcards and posters and paintings and so on of the cathedral before we walked through this stone wall, a gate in the stone wall. And when we walked through, my jaw literally fell open. I mean, I was absolutely stupefied. The largest cathedral still in Britain, I think. No. St. Paul's has got to be much larger than this. It's the largest something. And maybe the tallest. No, I don't know. Anyway, look it up. Google it yourself. Dang impressive building. I think it's safe to say I don't think we have anything like it in America. Even our national cathedral is big. Maybe it's bigger. I don't know. But this was built in 1200. I mean, that's... Oh my goodness, us Americans, we don't have any history over here, do we? I like America, don't get me wrong. But it's so fun. My wife and I, on the same day that we went here, we had supper at, I believe it was the new inn, not the old one, the new one. Yes, built in the 12th century, 1100. The new inn. Love it. You Europeans are just used to that, I know. Us Americans, we're still blown away by that kind of stuff. As we should be, I think. By the way, I'm liking that effect, the thumb. I just need to wipe my thumb off now. Again, I don't use any cobalt or cadmium paints in my painting. No manganese, so I feel very free to use my fingers. Hey, Lakey Poo. My daughter, my granddaughter, Lake, nicknamed by me Lakey Poo. It's wanting to sneak in here. Whoops, let me get you bigger here so you can see. So I'm going back and forth between standing up and sitting down. I have learned that, you know, if your feet get so sore it makes painting miserable, then, my goodness, then sit down. But generally speaking, your energy flows better when you're standing up. By the way, your energy flows better when you paint with two hands. There we go again. Man, that guy keeps talking about painting with two hands. I know, I said the other day, you should have known me back when I was nice and I didn't harp on it, but I'm getting more harpy as I get older. So I think, especially you young people, anybody young people watching me, man, you start now. I didn't start painting with two hands till I was 50. Should have. I was not at all ambidextrous when I started. Not at all. Okay, are you leaving again? Yeah. Okay, thanks for checking on me, sweetie pie. Thanks. Bye. Bye. Now tell me that ain't precious. 4-year-old. No, yeah, just about 5. 5 in a couple weeks. Well, just wanted to check on me. Okay, now, this roof here. I'm going to draw a line. And then I'm going to smear the line. Fair enough? And I'm going to come in here and draw a bunch of lines. Now, let me figure out the exact angle of the ribs in this copper roof, I'm assuming, but maybe not, maybe tin, I don't know. It's not a verdigris color anyway. I was trying to remember that word yesterday. I couldn't remember the word verdigris. Good grief. Now, I mentioned this a while ago. This is another example of a repeated motif. You get a lot of this kind of thing in architecture. That is a pattern that's repeated over and over and over again. When you encounter that, you don't want to paint the pattern over and over and over again in the same way. You need to come up with, like what I'm doing right now, you need to come up with different ways to render the repeated pattern. Why? Because the essence of good painting is making interesting marks. And the same mark repeated over and over and over again is most certainly not interesting. Let me zoom in here a little bit more so you can perhaps see this a little bit better. See how messy I was? That was on purpose, yes? So there's just the slightest hint of ridges there, isn't there? Now I'm going to do a couple things. One is I'm going to pick up a pencil again. And do a few lines of pencil Too much of that would be too much, but a little bit is okay. Now I'm going to pick up a brush and get some dark transparent paint on it. And paint some dark ridges. So I'm coming up with several different ways: scratching, pencil, negative painting, painting around the ridges, which is what I started. Now I'm actually painting the ridges with dark paint. Again, too much of any of these is too much, but a little bit of each is just right. Now, just to comment, the rule is, every rule can be broken, but you better know it first, or you're probably just screwing up. The rule is darks first, lights last. So anytime you apply dark paint to your canvas, that means you're setting yourself up to do, in a minute, light paint, right? So right now, well, till just a second ago, I was doing these dark ridges. That means the next thing I'm going to do is go back to these light colored, the light brushes, the brushes with the dull olive green, is maybe a description, and paint in between the dark line, the dark marks that I just made a few minutes ago. So another way to describe this is an elementary painter might look at the ribs, the lines in this roof, and have the mistaken notion that, oh, yeah, you just paint it and then you paint the lines and you're done. When in fact, as you can see, it's a multi-step process. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this and that, and this and that. It's more important that these marks be interesting than that they be accurate. Of course, I want them to be accurate, but even interestingness is even more important. So once again, now I'm painting the ridges by painting between the ridges, painting negative painting. So I've utilized at least 4, maybe 5 different techniques for indicating these ridges. That is a pretty good model for you. More scratching didn't have much effect. Now, as I squint, as I look at it through squinty eyes, right now I feel like the ridges are a little bit too strong. So that's not too difficult to remedy. I just took this brush. Let's just do a little bit of messing up, shall we? Now, that's not the end of the story, because that looks contrived. That scumbling is, generally speaking, not a good last word on a painting. It's a cop-out. It's that diminishing of stroke. So I need to come in here. I've mixed up, again, a slightly lighter color than was already there, and need to come in and do just a few, you could call them accents or highlights. Oh, and the same roof is over here. I better not forget that. I'm changing the angle very slightly. Let me stand back and make sure my perspective is okay. Yeah, it is. Whew. Okay, I fear that I'm not done with this section of this roof yet, and I'm afraid that I'm just boring you to tears, so I probably will stop broadcast here. You know, there's good painting, and then there's just like painting, and I'm afraid I've slipped over into Snorville. So a good lesson, though. You know, a lot of good principles reflected in the last several minutes with doing this. Mostly about the repeated motif, the repeated pattern. Anytime you're painting, and it's not just in man-made. Petals of a flower, the petals of a rose, for instance. You dare not paint every petal the same way. By the way, and that is the, if you will, that is the weakness of the Bob Ross approach to painting. Is, you know, all the boughs of the evergreen tree are painted with the same stroke, bum 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 bum, bum. And that repetition is cheap. Our eyes don't like it. A little bit of repetition is good. A whole bunch is not good. I loved Bob Ross's program as much as anybody else, but he was not modeling great painting for us. He had a great program. Okay, I'm going to stop there because once again I need to take a distant look at this painting. That's an awfully bright roof, and I'm not sure that that's really the color it ought to be. But I'm going to paint without your company, if you don't mind, for just a few minutes, and I'll be back in a little while. By the way, over there on the wall put behind me is yesterday's, oh, there's my family. And there's yesterday's Statue of Liberty, which is available, and you can watch me paint it if you want. Okay, so thanks so much for watching. I'll be back in a little while. I hope. Hello, greetings from Mexico, Melissa. Good to hear from you. I probably missed you a little while ago. Didn't get your comment till right now. Thank you for watching. Good to have you. You might be my first person from Mexico that's made a comment. That's great. Thank you. I'm nearly finished with this impressionistic painting of Salisbury Cathedral. I actually wouldn't call it impressionistic. It's more like romantic. Romantic painting of Salisbury Cathedral. Just a few finishing touches. Although I will tell you, I think I'm probably going to be working on it again, either tomorrow or anyway the next time I paint, which may not be till Monday. I like it, but if I have the freedom to do a painting a second day, I always like to do it because I can do glazes over the entire thing, and a glaze over the whole thing, it just makes such a difference. I'm not completely convinced I got all of this exactly the way I want it. Let me come in here. I need to do these windows one more time. What you saw me just do with this soft brush was, I've already done it like 3 times, but that trick where I apply pretty thick paint and then come and smear it, sometimes with a finger, sometimes with a palette knife, sometimes with a brush like I did just then, and then come back and apply the thick paint one last time. Okay, enough of that. Now, I'm going to do a little bit on this roof right here. What I'm doing throughout much of the painting at this point is looking for any excuse I can find to jack up the color. And you can see I've already done that. Like, what do I mean by an excuse? What I mean is the underpainting is already a certain color, and I just exaggerate it. For instance, there was this pale purplish color here, so I did purple. There was a little bit of orange here, so I did orange. There was a little bit of green here, so I did green, and so on and so forth. And right now I've got a tiny hint of blue right on this part of this roof. And so I want to come in here and just push it a little bit. Just make it a little bit bluer without going crazy with it. I want it to almost look like an accident. These little accent colors. Maybe a little bit there too. While I'm at it, let's do some, I see a hint of violet up here. I don't know if you guys can even see it. Probably not. Maybe you can. There's just a hint of purple here. So I just come in here and as I say, jack it up, just ratchet it up. I don't know, whatever term you want to use there. Just increase it a little bit. I think I'm going to quit. Wait. I say that and then I go, oh, wait. No, I'm not. There's a little bit of red happening, just a tiny bit of red accent right here. And that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. That gives me an excuse, gives me permission to come. Can I zoom in even more? Yeah, I can. To come in and just hit the faintest little accent of color because it's already there. See, that's the key. That's the key thing. It's already got that color there. Let me see if there's red anywhere else in the painting. I don't, well, there is now. Oh yeah, over here there actually is. Boy, that's awfully close to the edge. I'm not sure I should mess with anything that close to the edge. Right there maybe? Yeah? Down here? Yeah? So again, I will post this when I'm finished, which I don't think I'll be finished now today at all. But you'll see all of these things if you subscribe to my channel. Then of course I've started in the last couple of weeks posting the finished painting right there on YouTube. It's a new functionality that they have made available to us, which is really nice. So you guys, if you subscribe, you'll get a notification that I've put up an image, and you'll be able to see the finished paintings, which I think you would enjoy if you watched me do any of the painting at all. Again, a little bit more purple there. Why? Because there was already a hint of purple on the canvas at that point. A lot of fun. So what the overall impression of the painting is that it's a very muted, subtle, not a very colorful. It's very, grayish. But then there's all these little spicy points of color all over the place, which I think is very exciting. Now as I said, I'll probably finish it another day, pushing this green a little bit. A little tiny bit of emerald green right there and right here. Now there's almost no green down here in the foreground, and I sense that perhaps there should be. It looks like a very rainy night, and the ground is covered with water that's reflecting the lights of the windows. Which window? The windows. And that's a nice effect that I did not have that indicated, I don't think, in the sketch. Did I? Let me look at my sketch again. No, that was not in my sketch. That's made up in the painting. Okay, well, thank you for watching. If you like this, please subscribe. If you're an artist, please leave a comment. Well, leave a comment even if you're not an artist. Tell your friends, though, to watch me. Would you do that? In the near future, I'm going to be taking off all of my ads. That'll be a good thing, so you don't have to wade through the ads again. And I'm going to put up either a Patreon account or a PayPal where people can just donate a little bit to help me make these videos and help me make them better. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll be done for tonight.